Hi Year 7, Mr. Tapley here for your next lesson of Year 7 Humanities. This lesson we are looking at developing our understanding of the city-states of Athens and Sparta in ancient Greece, trying to identify some similarities, some differences, and then looking how this all ended in a major conflict, a war between the two most powerful city-states in ancient Greece. And we're hoping to outline a few key features of each city-state in ancient Greece. So what did they look like? So, as we discussed in our last lesson, ancient Greece was not one nation. There wasn't one ancient Greece. There were hundreds of independent city-states, kind of like ancient Australia, where you had all these different tribes. Each one had unique traditions, culture, and law. But there were common features. So they all worshipped the same gods. However, some places, some city-states, worshipped one god more than others. So they had like their favorite god or favorite goddess. But the common features that they had were how they were constructed, so how they all looked. So you've got a nice picture down here of ancient Athens, or modern Athens, I should say. This is a picture of Athens from today. But all the city-states in ancient Greece had a urban center. So I've actually got a picture of Melbourne here as well. So think of it as Melbourne. So in Melbourne, the city of Melbourne, you've got all your businesses, the city markets, you've got lots of big houses, same in ancient Greece. So you had an urban center with businesses, markets, housing, and then that was surrounded by the countryside. So as you move out of Melbourne to Glen Waverley, then even further out into like Healesville, and then you get out to the country, you have your farms, and that's where the food for the city came from. In the city, you also had temples, so places of religious worship, and you had government buildings, so places where the city rulers were located. It's a bit hard to see in this picture of Athens down here, but that one building on top of the mountain, that is where the government, the city rulers, would be located. So how they would show that the government, and often temples, so religion, was the most important thing in Greece, was that they would literally put them at the top of the ladder. They would put them at the highest point in the cities, on top of a mountain or a hill. And they were all protected by very thick city walls. So lots of primary artifacts or ruins, I guess, from ancient Greece are those city walls that surrounded the entire city. The city was the center of trade, commerce, culture, and politics. And the two most powerful city-states in ancient Greece were Athens and Sparta. So we're going to look at Athens, Sparta, and then how they had a disagreement. So Athens was the largest city-state in classical Greece. Their people valued education, arts, and trade. This city-state is often referred to as the birthplace of Western civilization, in recognition of their cultural and political impact of Athens on future civilizations. So at the start of this unit on ancient Greece, I talked about all the wonderful things that ancient Greece did for us, all the developments in mathematics, in history, philosophy, blah, 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 blah. Almost all of those achievements occurred in Athens. Almost all of them occurred in classical Greece, so this time period of ancient Greece, and almost all of them occurred in what they call the golden age of ancient Greece, the golden age of Athens. So all the wonderful things that ancient Greece did for us, most of them occurred in this city-state. Athens was the center of culture and one of the wealthiest cities in the ancient world. It was famous for beautiful artwork, buildings, theater, philosophy, and literature. However, arguably the defining feature of ancient Athens was their system of government, so how power was distributed, how they ruled in ancient Athens was something called democracy. So most of the other places in ancient world, in the ancient world, they had a general, so the guy who had the strongest army, or they had an emperor, so because his dad was super special, he's now in charge, king, queen, whatever. However, in Athens, all citizens were allowed to vote on laws, and all citizens could be elected as city officials to create the laws, to enforce the laws. And that was rotated. No one was in charge for like 50 years. It was rotated throughout the people over years, which created a very fair system of government that many nations, including ancient Rome and modern Australia, adopted in the future. That's why it's considered the birthplace of Western civilization, because everyone afterwards copied ancient Greece. So the world that we have today wouldn't exist if not for ancient Greece, if not for ancient Athens. So that's why Athens was a super, super powerful and super important city-state. Sparta was also powerful, bit different. So while Athens was all about knowledge and art and human rights, Sparta was about power. The city-state of Sparta was what you call a warrior society. So their culture is centered on military service and military strength, which allowed them to become one of the most powerful city-states in ancient Greece. Sparta was the only city-state in ancient Greece to have a permanent army. So most of the city-states, if there was a war or someone was starting to fight, they would get people would say, you're a soldier, go do soldier things, and then when the war ended, they would go back to their lives. Sparta, all men began military training at 7 years of age, and they served in the military for the rest of their life. The only job in ancient Sparta was a soldier. If you're a man, you were a soldier. If you're a woman, you were helping soldiers. And if you were a slave, you were doing all the other stuff that no one else wanted to do, basically. So all the men were soldiers from the age of 7. Training finished when they were 20, and they could stop being soldiers when they were 60, so 40 years in the army. Most people didn't live to 60 in a warrior society. Their culture did not value art or literature, and children received only a basic education. You basically learned how to read and write to the point where you could spell the word army. The Spartans were very powerful, obviously, and it was the Spartans who led the United City-States. It was very impressive. The first time that all these city-states had come together into one kind of ancient Greece against their biggest enemy, the first supervillain in ancient Greece history, the Persians. So they led the United City-States in the Persian Wars. In the famous Battle of Thermopylae, King Leonidas and only 300 Spartan warriors were able to delay 100,000 enemy soldiers from invading Greece, which is actually a very famous movie called 300, which is the story that's based off. Now, differences between these city-states would often lead to conflict and violence. That's just the way it is in world history. If you are different, if you disagree with someone, if you don't understand them, often leads to violence. And the Peloponnesian Wars would test the strength of Athens and Sparta. So we've got these two city-states. They've got similar features, like the way the city is constructed. They both have temples. They have the same religion, same language, same Greek alphabet. But they value different things. And they have different systems of government, different rules. In Sparta, they did not have democracy. They basically had two general kings that were in charge of everything. But let's get into the Peloponnesian Wars. So although the city-states of ancient Greece united against the Persians, it didn't take them long to get back to fighting. Athens and Sparta engaged in violent conflicts for years, which eventually led to the Peloponnesian Wars from 431 to 405 BCE. Although Athens had a strong navy and they were well financed, so they could afford the best weapons and the best ships because of all that trade money, Spartan military, that warrior society, was superior, and eventually they won the war and Athens was defeated. The impact of this loss would be significant. So prior to the Peloponnesian Wars, Athens was the most powerful city-state in ancient Greece, really, and all of Athens' allies supported Athens. But after the war, now everyone's Team Sparta. The war was costly for both sides of the conflict. War is very, very expensive, and it's very devastating on the people of those two civilizations, two city-states, I guess. So because you've gone off to war, all those farmers, they're not farming, food dies off, and the soldiers need a lot of food as well. So poverty and famine devastated city-states. You had people dying of starvation, people who no longer had money because their businesses or their house had been burnt down. It's also very expensive to pay soldiers, to pay for all these weapons. So you had poverty and famine. The golden age of Greece. So the development of culture, knowledge, and art ended with the collapse of Athens, because Sparta wasn't too worried about doing mathematics or engineering or anything like that. And after this, the allies of both sides of the war, so Athens had a couple of city-states on their side, Sparta a couple on their side, they kept fighting after the war ended. So there was more violent struggles. It became more frequent for the city-states to, instead of kind of like talk about each other and be like, I don't like you, it was, I don't like you, and kapow. So those future conflicts weakened all of the city-states of ancient Greece, and it allowed a foreign invader, a neighboring nation of Macedonia, to conquer all of ancient Greece in 331 BCE. So you've gone from the golden age of Athens, the golden age of Greece, into this war between the city-states, the two most powerful city-states. Now everyone hates each other. Now we're all fighting. Now ancient Greece is conquered by a foreign nation. So, that's a good way to end it, I think. You've got 4 questions here that I'd like you to smash into your digital notebook. No textbook reading for today. You're just using the information from the slides and the information in your head. I'm wearing the hat because I'm having a bad hair day, so there's no special reason for the hat. Anyway, complete the following questions in your digital notebook. Question 1. Identify one similarity and one difference between the city-states of Athens and Sparta. So that can be the way the city-states are ruled or governed, what they value, the structure of the city-state, language, religion, all the aspects of a civilization. One similarity, one difference. Question 2. What do you think led to all these violent conflicts between the city-states of ancient Greece? I mentioned, so we saw Athens and Sparta, obviously, but I mentioned that city-states actually ended up fighting a lot more after this Peloponnesian War. Why? What sort of differences do you think caused these conflicts? What do people and city-states value, and what could they disagree about that could lead to such violence? Question 3. Why were the city-states victorious in the Persian Wars, but they were conquered by Macedonia? So they failed in the conquest of ancient Greece. So why 2 violent conflicts, 2 wars between foreign invaders? What was so different between the Persian Wars and when Macedonia invaded? And then question 4. This one's more of an opinion. There's no wrong answer, really. It's which city-state do you believe was superior, Athens or Sparta? And then I want you to tell me why. So a couple sentences for each of those questions there. Chuck it in your digital notebook. If you have any questions or concerns, of course, please let me know. Otherwise, best of luck, guys. Hope you're well, and cheers.